Let me ask you something. What if the only thing standing between you and the life you crave isn't your resources, your background, your education, or your circumstances, but one decision? What if in this very moment, you're one choice away from becoming unstoppable? I spent decades studying peak performers, world-class athletes, billion-dollar entrepreneurs, and everyday heroes who transform their lives. And I can tell you this with absolute certainty. It's not talent that makes them unstoppable. It's not luck. It's not even strategy. It's decision. The kind of decision that burns the bridges behind you, the kind where you say, no matter what happens, I will find a way. When you make a true decision, not a preference, not a wish, not a let's see what happens, but a decision, you cut off every other possibility. That's when power shows up. What if the real reason you haven't broken through yet isn't lack of talent, lack of money, or lack of opportunity, but lack of decision? Let's be honest. Most people don't decide. They hope, they wish, they prefer, they say, I'll try, but trying is a negotiation with failure. A true decision is different. The word decision comes from the Latin decidere, which means to cut off. When you decide, you cut off every other possibility. There is no plan B. There is no emotional escape hatch. There is only forward. Think about the moments in your life that changed everything. Was it gradual? Or was it the instant you said, enough is enough, the second you decided to leave the toxic environment? The moment you committed to your health, the day you refused to settle anymore, that shift didn't happen because conditions became perfect. It happened because your threshold for uncertainty became stronger than your tolerance for mediocrity. Here's the truth. Indecision drains energy. It creates internal conflict. It keeps you stuck in analysis, hesitation, and doubt. Decision, on the other hand, releases power. When you decide, your brain stops searching for exits and starts searching for solutions. Resourcefulness awakens. Creativity activates. Energy rises. Why? Because the mind responds to commitment. When there is no retreat, it finds a way forward. Ask yourself, are you interested or are you committed? When you're interested, you do what's convenient. When you're committed, you do whatever it takes. That shift in mindset changes everything. Professionals understand this. Leaders live this. High performers demand this of themselves. They don't wait for certainty. They create it through decision. And here's the hook. You don't need more confidence to decide. Confidence is a byproduct of decisive action. You decide first, then you build capability. You decide first, then you grow into the role. Waiting to feel ready is the fastest way to stay stuck. So raise the standard. Draw a line in your mind. Choose who you're going to be. Choose what you will no longer tolerate. Choose the result you will produce, no matter the obstacle. When the decision is real, your behavior changes instantly, your focus sharpens, your excuses disappear, and in that moment, you step into a different level of personal power. Let me challenge you to something uncomfortable. Your life right now is a reflection of what you're willing to tolerate, not what you desire, not what you dream about, what you tolerate. Standards are not wishes. They are non-negotiables. And the moment you raise them, everything changes. Most people don't have a motivation problem. They have a standards problem. They say they want excellence, but they accept average effort. They say they want financial freedom, but they tolerate poor discipline. They say they want extraordinary relationships, but they allow ordinary communication. Here's the hook. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you accept. Think about areas where you once settled and later decided, this is not who I am anymore. Maybe it was your health. Maybe it was your career performance. Maybe it was how people treated you. The instant you raised your internal standard, not publicly, not for applause, but internally, your behavior shifted. You trained harder. You spoke differently. You demanded better. Standards drive behavior more powerfully than goals ever. Goals are future focused. Standards are present focused. A goal says, one day I'll achieve this. A standard says, this is how I live today. That's a massive difference. Professionals operate from standards. Leaders operate from standards. High performers don't negotiate with their commitments when it's inconvenient. They've decided that certain behaviors are simply not acceptable. Here's another truth. When you raise your standards, you will feel discomfort. Growth disrupts familiarity. Your old habits will resist. Your environment may question you. But that discomfort is evidence that you are evolving. The key is to link raising your standards to something emotionally compelling. Don't just say, I should. Say, I must. connected to your identity. Ask yourself powerful questions. What will my life look like in 5 years if I don't raise my standards now? What opportunities will I lose? What example will I set? Now flip it. What becomes possible if I demand more from myself? Starting today. Standards are built in small, repeated actions. Showing up on time, finishing what you start, preparing when no one is watching, speaking with certainty, protecting your time. Each action reinforces the identity of someone who refuses to settle. When you elevate what you accept from yourself, your environment adjusts, your results improve, your confidence grows, because standards are not about pressure, they're about alignment with the person you are committed to becoming. Let me ask you something that might disrupt the way you've been operating. How long have you been waiting to feel ready? How many opportunities have you delayed because you wanted more clarity, more certainty, more confidence? Here's the truth. Clarity is not found in contemplation. It is forged in action. Massive, imperfect action is the bridge between intention and transformation. Most people overestimate the value of planning and underestimate the power of movement. They analyze, they research, they prepare endlessly, but preparation without execution becomes procrastination in disguise. The marketplace does not reward hesitation, it rewards motion. It rewards those willing to step forward before they feel fully prepared. Here's the hook action, creates information. You don't need the full blueprint before you begin. You need the courage to take the first step. When you move, you gather feedback. When you gather feedback, you adjust. When you adjust, you improve. That cycle, act, learn, refine, builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence. Perfectionism is often fear wearing a professional mask. It sounds responsible, it sounds intelligent, but underneath, it's the fear of judgment, failure, or discomfort. Massive action breaks that cycle. It interrupts overthinking. It shifts you from theory to experience. And experience is the greatest teacher. High performers understand that speed of implementation matters. They would rather move quickly and correct course than move slowly and remain stuck. Every decisive action sends a signal to your mind, I am capable. I am in control. I move. That internal message reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who plans and start seeing yourself as someone who executes. And here's another truth. Action generates energy. When you sit in hesitation, you feel heavy, uncertain, drained. And when you take initiative, even imperfectly, your physiology changes, your focus sharpens, your state elevates, you feel progress. Progress is addictive. Consider the cost of inaction. Opportunities fade, confidence erodes, and regret accumulates. Now imagine the alternative. You take bold steps, you stumble, you learn, you grow. Which path expands you? Massive action does not mean reckless action. It means committed, consistent, forward movement. It means making the call, launching the project, having the conversation, submitting the proposal. It means stepping into discomfort with the understanding that growth lives there. The difference between those who dream and those who achieve is not intelligence. It is execution. Move before you feel ready. Adjust along the way. Build momentum through motion. That is how capability expands and results accelerate. Who are you when no one is watching? Not what you post, not what you promise, not what you intend to become. Who are you at your core? Because here's the truth. You don't get what you want. You get who you believe you are. Identity is the hidden force behind every action you take and every action you avoid. Most people focus on changing behavior without upgrading identity. They say, I want to be more disciplined, yet they still see themselves as inconsistent. They say, I want to lead, yet internally they identify as someone who follows. And here's the hook. Your mind will always work to stay consistent with the story you tell about yourself. If you believe you are someone who quits when it gets hard, your behavior will prove that belief, right? If you believe you are relentless, your actions will align accordingly. Identity is not formed by what you say occasionally. It is built through repeated emotional experiences and the meaning you attach to them. Every time you follow through, you cast a vote for the identity of someone reliable. Every time you push past resistance, you reinforce the identity of someone strong. Small actions, repeated consistently, reshape self-perception. Professionals and high performers understand this principle deeply. They don't merely pursue outcomes, they engineer identity. Instead of saying, I'm trying to build a successful business, they adopt the mindset, I am a disciplined entrepreneur who executes daily. And instead of saying, I'm working on getting healthy, they declare internally, I am someone who prioritizes strength and vitality. That subtle shift changes standards, choices, and emotional resilience. Let me challenge you. What identity have you been unconsciously protecting? The cautious one, the overthinker, the person who almost succeeds. And more importantly, who must you become to achieve the results you desire? Write it clearly, define it precisely, speak it internally with conviction. Your environment will test your new identity. Old habits will attempt to pull you back, but identity grows stronger with evidence. Each aligned action reinforces belief. Over time, the new standard becomes natural. You cannot outperform your self-image for long. Eventually, performance drops to match identity. So upgrade the identity first. Decide who you are. Act in alignment daily. Condition your mind to associate yourself with strength, discipline, resilience, and follow-through. When identity shifts, behavior follows automatically. And when behavior aligns consistently, results become inevitable. Let's confront something most people spend their entire lives avoiding: pain. What if the discomfort you're running from is actually the doorway to your next level? What if the very thing you label as bad is the catalyst designed to shape your strength? Here's the hook: pain is not the enemy. Misused pain is. Every successful professional, every elite performer, every resilient leader has one trait in common. They have learned to reinterpret pain. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this teaching me? That single shift transforms suffering into strategy. Pain carries information. It reveals weaknesses, exposes limiting beliefs, and highlights areas that demand growth. Avoidance is natural. Your nervous system is wired to seek comfort and predictability. But growth requires expansion beyond familiarity. The discomfort of discipline builds endurance. The discomfort of rejection builds resilience. The discomfort of failure builds intelligence. When you train yourself to associate short-term pain with long-term gain, your relationship with challenge changes. Permanently, consider the alternative. When pain is avoided, it compounds. Avoid the difficult conversation and the relationship deteriorates. Avoid the hard work and opportunities diminish. Avoid the risk and regret accumulates. Now imagine leaning in instead, facing the feedback, making the call, taking the responsibility. That immediate discomfort becomes fuel. High achievers use pain as leverage. They channel frustration into preparation. They convert setbacks into skill development. They transform criticism into refinement. Instead of collapsing under pressure, they ask, how can I use this? That question creates power. It redirects emotional energy into productive momentum. Pain also clarifies values. It exposes what truly matters. When you experience loss, you recognize priorities. When you encounter failure, you identify gaps in strategy. When you endure challenge, you discover capacity you didn't know existed. Strength is not developed in comfort. It is forged under tension. Here's another powerful truth. The meaning you assign to pain determines its impact. If you label it as proof of inadequacy, it weakens you. If you label it as part of growth, it strengthens you. The event itself is neutral. Interpretation gives it force. Instead of asking how to eliminate discomfort from your journey, ask how to harness it. Channel emotional intensity into focus. Let frustration sharpen discipline. Let setbacks refine strategy. The pressure you feel is not a signal to retreat. It is an invitation to rise. Let me ask you something that cuts straight to the core. Who are you when the excitement fades, when the applause is gone, when the motivation dips, when the results are slower than you expected? Who do you become in that moment? Because anyone can act when they feel inspired. The real separator is who stays committed when they don't. Here's the hook. Motivation is a feeling. Commitment is a decision. Feelings fluctuate. Decisions anchor. If you rely on emotion to drive performance, your consistency will always be unstable. But when you operate from commitment, your standards remain firm regardless of mood. Professionals understand this deeply. They don't show up only when it's convenient. They don't execute only when conditions are perfect. They act because they said they would. That internal contract is stronger than temporary discomfort. When you commit beyond emotion, you remove negotiation from the equation. You don't wake up asking, do I feel like it? You wake up declaring, this is who I am. This is what I do. Consider how often people abandon goals, not because they lack ability, but because they misinterpret emotional dips as signals to stop. Fatigue is not failure. Doubt is not destiny. Frustration is not a forecast. They are temporary states. There will be days when progress feels invisible. Days when effort seems unrewarded. Days when distractions pull at your focus. That is precisely where commitment becomes your competitive advantage. Staying consistent when others retreat builds momentum others never experience. And here's a powerful perspective shift. Commitment reduces stress. When you've already decided that quitting is not an option, you free mental energy previously spent debating. Instead of negotiating with yourself, you channel that energy into execution. Clarity replaces internal conflict. Discipline strengthens with repetition. Each time you act, despite not feeling like it, you reinforce resilience. Each time you follow through under pressure, you deepen self-trust. That trust becomes confidence. Not loud confidence, but quiet certainty, the kind built on evidence. Ask yourself, what promise have you made that you've been treating as optional? What standard have you allowed your emotions to override? Elevate that promise. Protect it. Honor it. Because when your behavior aligns with your word consistently, you build a reputation with yourself that no circumstance can shake. So here's how I want you to leave this moment. Stand in your power, feel your heartbeat, recognize that you are alive for a reason, and say to yourself with conviction, I decide, I commit, I will not stop. Because the moment you decide, your life changes. And when you refuse to go back to who you used to be, nothing, and I mean nothing, can stop you. Become unstoppable. Start with your decision and let that decision redefine your destiny.